what they mean by poetic justice. It's your turn.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 1986 action film Raw Deal. The film is directed by John Irvin and it stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Catherine Harold, Sam Wanamaker, Paul Sheena, Robert Davi and Darren McGavin. Now this film focuses on Arnold Schwarzenegger's character Mark Kaminsky, who used to work for the FBI. He basically had to leave his job. He ends up working as a sheriff for a local town. It's a pretty poor existence. His wife's not happy. And then he is approached by a former colleague, Harry Shannon, played by Darren McGavin, whose son is killed as he's protecting a witness in the witness protection program. And his son is killed by, or ordered to be killed by Sam Wanamaker, who's a guy who runs the local mobsters in Chicago, is it? So he then basically goes to Kaminsky, Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, and asks him to infiltrate this mob outfit and destroy it from the inside. And if he agrees to do it, he will move heaven and earth to get him back into the Bureau. Right, Raw Deal then. Well, as I said recently, I did the End of Days review recently, and I said on that I'm going to start covering some of the older Arnie films. Well, but not all of them that you would consider classics, I suppose. Now, Raw Deal is one of those ones. I'll be honest, I was a huge fan of Arnie when I was growing up. But this was always one of his films I never really cared for when I was younger. I always had it on VHS and things like that, and I did watch it fairly regularly. It felt, in comparison to the others that came out at the same time as this, like your Terminators and your Commandos, and then Predator soon after, it felt cheap in comparison. And that's no real surprise, really. When you look at who produced it, it was Dino De Laurentiis. I probably haven't pronounced that right. You know, the guy that produced some of his earlier films and things like that. And he kind of had Arnie by the short and curlies for a few years. And he only agreed to do this film, Arnie, if they agreed to kind of dissolve his contract with them so he could get out and making films with them, because he wanted to move on to bigger and better things. Although he did apparently enjoy making this film, Arnold. I've seen quotes from him saying that he learned a lot while he was doing this film. He thought the director was excellent, and he thought he was a better actor when he finished making this film. And that's not a surprise when you consider who they decided to surround him with, because it's fair to say at this time in his career, Arnold was still pretty much a rookie. And it does show sometimes in some of these movies he did in the 80s, depending on the director and probably the budget, so they could do more takes and things like that. And it does show, I think, in this film. There are some scenes where he's actually pretty decent, and you could tell that he's working and putting a lot of effort in, Arnold. And there's some other scenes that you watch and you're just thinking that needed more takes. He needed more time to try and get that one right, because his acting's poor in some of those takes, but they obviously probably didn't have the budget to keep doing it over and over again, maybe. So I thought the idea to cast probably a lot of these veterans around him, or well-established actors, like the Sam Wanamakers and the Robert Davis and the Paul Sheena and the Darren McGavins of the world, really help elevate this film. And it does feel like an authentic, like, mob film. But it's odd as well, because it does feel like Arnold doesn't belong in it. He kind of doesn't belong in that world. Seeing him walk around in like these pinstripe suits and things, it just looks odd and it doesn't suit him. And I think this film works best when it reverts to the pattern that Arnie was doing in those days, which was give me some guns and I'll kill some people. And when, for me, this film kind of makes sense with Arnold from like the last half an hour of the film. when he goes to like this, I don't know what it is, that stone place where he takes them all out there. Well, you see the whole prep of him getting ready and putting bullets in his guns and looking at admiring himself in the mirror and all this kind of stuff, which I always thought was weird, even when I was younger. And then going directly to like the headquarters of where the Sam Wanamaker is and his other cronies and taking them out, for me is the highlight of the film. Probably doesn't make a lot of sense. It's overkill for like a mob film like this almost. And there are other bits in the film that I do think work. The attempts at humour is actually pretty decent. Sometimes it has some light moments. Robert Davi is wonderful in the film, you know. He's got some nice one-liners, things like that, and he's actually got pretty good chemistry with Arnold. Apparently, as well, Robert Davi was going to be cast in Total Recall, you know, as the Michael Ironside character, but he turned it down. That would have been interesting to see them go head-to-head again. But it's actually, after watching it again to prepare for this review, and I haven't seen it for a few years, while I don't think this is certainly one of Arnold's best, it could never be considered one of his best, I do think it's got a lot going for it. It's better than I remember when I was younger. I did enjoy aspects of it, but there are also aspects of this film that are a bit cringy, not gonna lie. It's certainly a film of its time, and it's certainly it does, I think, definitely stand out in regards to some of the other films he was doing around this time in the mid to late 80s. This one I think stands out in regards to like I say, it feels cheap. It almost feels like a TV movie at times in how it's filmed and things like that. And there's some odd choices going on it here and there. But yeah, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed certainly aspects of it, and it's certainly not an awful film. I'm going to give it a fair 7 out of 10. I think that's a fair score for it. Certainly with a little bit of nostalgia thrown in there. If I was being really brutal, I would certainly knock the score down a little bit. But yeah, it's worth checking out. It's one of those ones in Arnold's filmography that not many people talk about. But it is a curious film in his filmography that I think you should definitely watch if you are a fan of Arnold. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. Again, let me know in the comments if there's another Arnold film you want me to cover, and I will certainly consider it. But in the meantime, I'll be back with loads more content on the channel very, very soon.